So far in this program, we've been talking about direct burial and conduit installation of URD cable. But cable is also installed in other underground systems. In this part of the program, we're going to be looking at one of these applications: the installation of cable in conduit between two manholes. Underground cable installation can often involve handling cables that can weigh 10 tons or more. Moving and installing cable like this requires special equipment and rigging techniques. This equipment allows for a safe installation and reduces the chances of damage to the cable. The techniques and equipment you'll be seeing in this part of the program are intended as examples. While they are representative of what is used in the field, there may be differences from company to company. In addition, field conditions often vary from job to job. For example, because a manhole is underground, you may have to take steps to make sure that there's adequate ventilation, or to ensure that excess water is pumped out of the hole. As with any job, before going out to the site, be sure you're familiar with your company's procedures. Okay, now the job of pulling a cable and installing it between two manholes can be thought of in 5 basic steps. One step is done well in advance of the job, while the other 4 are done on site. These basic steps are advanced planning, conduit preparation, positioning the above ground equipment, rigging the manholes, and pulling the cable. Now keep in mind that these steps do not necessarily happen in order, and that once on site, different crew members may be working on more than one step at a time. The first of the basic tasks is to plan the job in advance. Planning a job ahead of time can help ensure that it's completed successfully. 3 basic planning concerns are the length of the cable needed, the direction of the cable pull, and the equipment and personnel required for the job. The first of these, cable length, is an important consideration because some types of cable are ordered directly from the manufacturer in the specific length required for a particular location. A second planning concern is the direction of the cable pull. When cable is installed between two manholes, one manhole is generally rigged for feeding the cable into the conduit. It's referred to as the feed hole. The other manhole is generally rigged for pulling the cable into the conduit. It's called the pulling hole. Each manhole and conduit run may have some slight differences. In some cases, one manhole may make a more convenient feed or pulling hole because of its design. Generally, the cable pulling direction is the one that will produce the least amount of tension on the cable and the easiest cable pull. Let's look at a simplified illustration of an overhead view of a conduit run between two manholes to see what this means. Here, the conduit run is straight, with no changes of direction. Normally, in this situation, it would make no difference which manhole is used for pulling and which is used for feeding. Here, however, the conduit run has a bend to allow it to go around an obstacle. In this case, this manhole will be the feeding hole, and this hole will be the pulling hole. This way, the cable is taken over the bend area almost immediately after being fed into the manhole. Because there is less cable being pulled when the cable is being pulled around the bend, the cable pull will be easier. Another consideration is whether the conduit run is on a level area. Here, the run between the two manholes is level. In this case, there is no advantage in using one manhole over another to pull from. Here, the conduit run between the manholes is on a slope. In this case, the feeding hole would probably be the one at the higher grade because it is easier to pull the cable downhill. An exception to this general rule is when you have a steep grade, where pulling the cable uphill can give greater control over the cable and the cable reel. Other conditions can also affect how the manholes are rigged. In some cases, the design of the manhole may affect the direction of the cable pull. For example, in this simplified illustration, The manhole has the cable entering in one corner of each end, and the splices have been made along each side and placed on cable racks. Let's look at one cable run to see how the cable would be installed in this manhole. The end of the cable extending into the manhole to the left of the splice is shorter than the length of cable needed on the right. A rule of thumb is to pull the cable into the manhole that needs the shorter end. In this case, this manhole would be used as the pulling hole for the cable on the left and as the feed hole for the cable on the right. A third concern in advanced planning is the equipment and personnel needed for the job. Generally, the length and weight of the cable, the direction and difficulty of the pull, and the rigging necessary for the job will be what determine how many people are needed and what equipment is necessary. With the advanced planning completed, the next task is preparing the conduit. This step, as well as the remaining installation procedures, are done at the job site. For the purposes of this program, conduit preparation is done in 3 steps: installing a jet line, cleaning the conduit, and installing the cable pulling rope. Let's see how this is done with a simplified illustration. This illustration shows a road, 2 manholes, and a run of conduit between the 2 manholes. Now, the first step in preparing the conduit is installing the jet line. In some cases, the jet line may be blown into the conduit, as we saw earlier, or the duct may be rodded. Rodding is a stiff material that can be pushed through a length of conduit. In some cases, the rodding is a number of short, jointed wooden or fiberglass rods inserted from one manhole to the other. Each of the rods is 3 or 4 feet in length and about 1 inch in diameter. Now, in other cases, a long, flexible steel or fiberglass rod may be used instead of the jointed rods. Once the rodding is installed, it can be used to pull a jet line into the duct. A jet line is used to pull other lines and a variety of equipment through the duct. One type of equipment that's often sent through is equipment used to clean the duct. 2 of the basic types of cleaning tools commonly used are a mandrel and a wire brush. Each tool is connected to the jet line and a tag line and pulled through the conduit. The mandrel is a steel or wooden form that is slightly smaller than the duct diameter. It's used to remove larger obstructions, such as concrete that has seeped through a conduit joint. The wire brush is used to clear the duct of any loose debris. The diameter of the brush is generally the same or larger than the diameter of the conduit. Another installation step is positioning the above-ground pulling equipment and the rigging at each manhole. Again, we can use the simplified illustration to see how these 2 steps are done. First, let's consider the feed manhole. As part of the advanced planning, the cable reel is delivered to the job site. The reel is positioned at the feed hole so that the cable reel is located directly over the duct to be used, and so that the cable is pulled from the top of the reel. This ensures that the cable comes off the reel in the direction of its natural curve. To guide the cable into the manhole and protect it from abrasive surfaces or sharp edges, a feed tube is used. The feed tube is a flexible, hollow steel tube. The large end of the tube is anchored to the manhole opening. Interchangeable nozzles, designed to fit different diameters of conduit, can be attached to the other end. When the feed tube is secured on both ends, it provides a protective curve that prevents cable abrasions and kinking. Now let's go back to the illustration to see how the pulling hole is rigged. The ideal rigging is the simplest arrangement that allows a straight pull out of the conduit. If there is a pulling eye on the manhole wall opposite the duct to be used, a snatch block can be rigged to guide the pulling rope from the duct and redirect it up through the manhole opening. Above the manhole, a truck with a winch is positioned to provide the power during the cable pull. Ideally, the winch is positioned directly over the manhole opening, This is the simplest arrangement. But what if there is no pulling eye in the manhole? Well, there are several rigging solutions for this. For instance, a portable eye can be bolted to the manhole wall. Or a device called a sheave stand can be rigged. A sheave stand consists of two channel irons, or I-beams, that are bolted together. Between the two beams, there's a space for a sheave. Holes in the I-beams allow the sheave to be placed in different positions as needed. The sheave stand is positioned and wedged into the manhole so that it is stable during the cable pull. If the truck cannot be positioned so that the winch is in a direct line with the snatch block in the manhole, a special block called a trap block can be rigged at the manhole opening so that the pulling rope can be directed through the manhole opening and up to the winch. Okay, with the site all prepared, let's see how the equipment and rigging can be used to pull the cable between the two manholes. The jet line we saw earlier is used to pull the cable pulling rope from the pulling truck. When the pulling rope reaches the cable reel, it's threaded through the feed tube and then attached to the cable. The cable is then pulled into the conduit by the winch at the pulling hole. Well, we've covered a lot of information in this part of the program. We saw the 5 basic steps of underground pulling: advance planning, conduit preparation, positioning the above ground equipment, rigging the manholes, and pulling the cable. And we introduced some of the equipment and rigging that are often used to install cable between two manholes.